Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about kind of a study over the past several decades of some famous artist managers, and it's going to be what we call cooperative learning. So you guys get to do some of the ground, some of the research, some of the groundwork, and we would like for you to present what you find in your research and in your textbook. So what we have here are the artist managers that are really ones to know about. There are more artist managers of note than what's listed in your book here, but I took the first 12 and I thought that we could kind of team up here. So I can put you guys in maybe like into pairs. Some of you will have to kind of be lone guns here. And what I'd like you to do is take a look at your book and take a look at any kind of online research that you can find. And it doesn't have to be anything too scholarly. Just, Wikipedia is fine. This is not, a big long dissertation or a research paper of any kind. But what I'd like you to do is take some time and research this person and share with us, who they managed, why they're well known as an artist manager, and what lessons has this person would they share if they were here on this call with us today, right now, based on your reading? So just kind of make sure that you guys are listening. So I'm going to assign uh, the artist manager to the students right now, to each of you. So Addie, are you there? Okay. So Addie, if you would take Tom Parker, and Alyssa, you can also take Tom Parker, and Amy Dawn, if you could take Renee Angelil, and Brittany, you can join Amy Dawn with that. Calvin, you can take Michael Jeffries, and Courtney, you can also take Michael Jeffries. Uh, Cullen and Dana, you could take Peter Grant. Kevin and Kyle, you can take Herbert Breslin. Let's see, and now we're going to go into singles. So Lewis, you can take Joe Simpson. Rachel, John Landau. Uh, Rachel, John Landau. Okay, Richard, Bob Doyle. Okay. Sorry. Okay, Richard, Bob Doyle, Robin Lena, Andrew Long Oldham, Shannon, Johnny Wright, and oh, it looks like I counted wrong. All right. Let's see. Alyssa, why don't you take Lou Pearlman, and Amy Dawn, you can take Sharon Osborne. So go ahead and up until, let's say, 8:45, go ahead and research your people.
Let's give a couple more minutes just because I sometimes I do this in class and it takes a little longer than I think. So
Okay.
let's go to like 8:50.
Okay. So until 8:50, research the artist manager that you were assigned. And what we would like to have you share is who they were, why they're well known, and these artist managers are in your books. And then what lesson would they share with us today if they were here? Okay.
Yeah, Luis, go ahead and just go with that one because we're all going to just do report outs. No, what we're going to do, Cullen, is that at the end of the 10 minutes, you guys just go ahead and do your research, and then we're going to turn the mic on so that you guys can share with everybody what you learned. Make sense? I know
That's
I've been sick
okay.
too, Colin.
Yeah, we're not grading you.
Richard, why don't you go ahead? Let me see who's flip to your list again here, Jill. Um, who's somebody that you left out this list that you could give to Richard?
Let's see here. We do have a couple of spares. Let's see. Hold on. Sorry. I'll just type the name in here so you can research it. Jonetta Patton.
Okay, and all of these are in your textbook too, chapter 4, everybody. Okay, so let's check back in about 7 minutes.
Rachel, yes, everybody was supposed to get a manager. If you didn't get one, you can also do Jonetta Patton.
Do you have someone else that you can give to Alfonso?
Oh, sorry.
I have an online session I gotta do. All right, bye.
Okay, how's everybody doing? You need another minute or two, or you about ready? Okay, you can keep working if you need to as we move forward. Um, all right, so Addie, you have Tom Parker. So if you would share with us about Tom Parker, please. Just anything you learned there. Well, you make sure that you're not on. I think you can just talk. You're not muted. Are you trying to talk? Anybody else have Tom Parker?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, is that Addie or is that?
Yeah, that's Addie.
Okay, great, perfect. Yes, can hear
Sounds like a phone commercial.
you.
So Colonel Tom Parker came here illegally from, I believe it was the Netherlands after World War II, and started working in carnivals, and he started doing acts like Minnie Pearl, and that's when he got that's when he met Elvis. At first, he had like 25% earnings of Elvis's overall earnings, which was unheard of. And then later on, he renewed the contract for 50% of all of his earnings, and then changed the contracts as well that he was paid. It was paid by the amount instead of by percentage for any of his tied royalties for his recordings, but he kind of forgot that you have to pay for the recordings, which kind of put them in a bind. Not to mention, a lot of people thought that he was a huge gambler and gambling Elvis's estate away. And he failed to register Elvis with Performing Rights Organization, which basically kind of put him in a bind because he would have gotten more payments for his performances of the songs on radio, television, concerts, and other places. So I guess what Colonel Tom Parker would tell you is that he was a great negotiator, but he forgot to cover his paper trail when it comes to managing an artist and making sure they get their complete earnings.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Okay. Sounds good. Alyssa, do you have anything to add to that?
I think she did an excellent job summarizing it. Yeah, the most important thing, I guess, is that he was an excellent negotiator for his time. I think she covered everybody else.
Yeah, and that's true. He definitely was a good negotiator. Unfortunately, he was a very good negotiator for himself. A lot of the time, towards the end of Elvis's career, he got 50%, even posthumously. So, 50% is a huge percentage to earn, and that was not just on the recordings, but also on the merchandise and items from the estate and so forth. So, one of the things that people criticize him for is that there was not a lot of global presence in terms of the touring. And Addie mentioned that he came illegally. And so a lot of people suspect that maybe he did not have the right papers to travel or that he would be caught with some type of immigration scandal. So something to think about, and we really don't know about that. So thank you very much, guys, for that great summary. And we next have up Renee Angelou, which I think, would that be Amy?
Yep, that was me.
Okay, and Brandon, did you
Can
also
you hear
do
me?
that one? Go ahead, Amy.
He is the manager for Celine Dion. Renee is 26 years older. We all know that. He's a lot older than her. It's 26 years, in case you were wondering. He basically saw her as a 12-year-old. So he started out as a singer himself from Canada, I believe it was. I didn't write that part down. I think he was in Canada.
Yes.
Right. And basically, from what I read and from what I know just previously, took her on as his pet project. Mortgaged his house, or he put a lot of money behind her. Ultimately, he was able to create this amazing superstar, really believed in her talent, signed a deal with her at 18. He was another one of the 50% guys who signed a 50% commission deal with her, and also ended up marrying her. One thing he did was he totally understood the market that he was trying to reach, in that he had her, get new teeth, new hair, new ways to talk and be, learn English better, all that good stuff, so that he really knew how to build a brand, I think, with Celine Dion. And that's clear, especially with now her performing in Las Vegas and the crazy amounts of money that she's gotten for a gig where she doesn't have to travel. She can stay still and perform in one city. So definitely for him, the lesson learned is know your audience and know who you're trying to reach. And if you know who you're trying to reach, you better build your brand accordingly.
Very good. I like what you said there, Amy, about knowing your audience and building a brand. He did have that vision for her, and especially the part about learning English. That's very important if your market is going to be America, for sure.
Well, yeah, she couldn't very well take on an American market if she couldn't speak English. So yeah, he understood that.
Okay, Brandon.
I don't know. Yeah, Brandon might have some other stuff.
Yeah, Brandon, did you find anything?
You mean Brittany? I don't know if it was Brandon.
Oh, Brittany, did you have?
I can't remember who else was assigned with me. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Well, I think it was me. Well, Amy, you pretty much found everything I found. The only thing I would add is like before he got to Celine Dion, he did manage a few other artists from Montreal, and
Right.
he had like a partnership. Well, he had a managing partner, but then they broke up and kind of decided to do their own solo careers, and that's kind of around the time that he found Celine. And I guess the only other thing I would add, as far as like one thing he could tell the class, is just if you're good at something, stick to it. So he saw Celine as kind of his star, so he mainly only focused on her and built her up and made her this. I can't say he made her this the success he is today, but he helped her get there.
Definitely true. And I noticed too, when I searched for things about him online, there's really not a lot of stuff. He doesn't even have his own webpage, which I suppose he doesn't need one, because he's got it all with Celine. That's truly his project, through and through to this day, that's commitment.
That's very good. Okay, great supplement there too as well, Brittany. Thank you. Okay, so Michael Jeffries, was that Calvin?
Yes. Okay. I have Michael Jeffries. Can anyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yep, you're
Okay.
good.
All right, thank you. Well, Michael Jeffries, from my understanding, was born in South London. He was a shady manager. Michael Jeffrey was the manager of Jimi Hendrix. His career began in music as an owner of several venues in northern England. Um, Eventually, he was the co-manager of a band called the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and then eventually became the manager of Jimi Hendrix later on in his career. Um, uh, I haven't seen anything positive about Michael Jeffries, to be honest with you. It seemed to be, like I said earlier, as we were describing one of the CCR band members, John, if I'm not mistaken. He seemed to be a snake. He seemed to be greedy. People in England seem to believe that Michael Jeffrey was the cause of Jimi Hendrix's death. That's what I've gathered so far about Michael Jeffrey.
Yes, that I could see where that could be the case. He did not put Jimi Hendrix's personal health and well-being first, which is and safety even, which is a number one as an artist manager. So if you watched, hopefully by now you've gotten a chance to watch the Outcast video. Just kind of get anybody comment about the Outcast video. If you remember, just go ahead and type in yes or something if you were able to watch it. Okay, good. So several of you got to see Blue Williams. And one of the things to note about Blue Williams, one of the reasons that he's such an amazing artist manager is because he always put the well-being of Outcasts or whoever his clients are, he put that first. So even something as small as how late they were going to be up interviewing and doing press for their new release, he compared that schedule to how early they'd have to wake up the next morning because they need to get the right amount of sleep. So that's what a good artist manager does, is really takes those small details into account. So any kind of not putting the artist first or any kind of conflict of interest would be considered poor artist management. And another thing to know about Michael Jeffries is that he was at 30%, so not quite as much as 50%, more than 25, of course. But he was a co-manager, had a partner, and he was bought out by his partner. And because of a 3% product royalty deal, he was getting up to 40% of the earnings at one point. And sometimes that money would exceed um, more than the promotional fee for the show. So it's kind of like he would book shows and not worry about Jimi Hendrix's well being. Think of a doctor scheduling a surgery just because he wanted to get a boat for for his wife, let's say. So oh yeah, you need that surgery. So that's kind of the way that Michael Jeffries behaved. So think of it that way. Um, yes, that's right about Calvin. Okay, so Peter Grant. Did anyone else have Michael Jeffries?
I did.
Okay.
I mean, everything was pretty much explained. I know I read something on Wikipedia where, in regards to Jimi Hendrix's death, Jeffries took out a $2 million life insurance policy right before Jimmy died. So that's one of the reasons why people are skeptical about the
Um,
death.
Also, just to add on about that, I learned that in 2006, Michael Jeffries' estate was up for auction for like $15 million, including the rights to some of Jimi Hendrix hits like Purple Haze and Voodoo Child. So, from reading this, all his assets were being sued by some third party, but I'm not sure what party was suing Michael Jeffries.
Hmm. Well, thank you for sharing about that $2 million piece about the life insurance. That is something that if I knew it, I forgot it with all or got mixed in with all the other artist management fun facts. So thank you, Courtney, for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, here's one of my favorites. Peter Grant. Who has Peter Grant? Would that be Colin? Dana. Okay.
Yes. Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yep. Go ahead, Dana.
Okay, she's saying go ahead. Okay, cool. Peter James G. Grant, pretty bad dude from what I've been reading. He managed popular English bands such as the Yardbirds, Led Zeppelin, and Bad Company. Um, he was described as one of the most baddest and ruthless managers in rock and roll history. I looked at some of his pictures. He's a pretty mean guy just from appearances. You know, he was shooting the bird on Google, but um, he is widely credited with approving pay conditions for the musicians and dealing with concert promoters. So I feel that that's a pretty big thing when it comes on negotiating better deals on the behalf of the artist. And if I had to say what lesson he would teach, I'd probably say something on the lines of like, I guess, standing up for yourself and not taking no for an answer when you feel like you're right. If that makes sense. Now, Dana can elaborate if she likes.
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
yeah, he everything Colin said, ditto. Um, what stands out to me is how he was so fiercely loyal to Led Zeppelin. Um, that it was just astounding. You know, the contract he got for them with Atlantic, $200 advance, and you know they maintain all the publishing rights and so forth, and the the deal he struck with promoters, you know, instead of the regular 40 to 50%, um, it was a 90-10 split, you know, where Zeppelin got, you know, the lion's share of that. Um, just his whole strategy and how Led Zeppelin, you know, he wanted them to avoid TV appearances and really focus on live performances, um, and not focus so much as getting hit singles out, but really developing a whole album uh, that you know people can gravitate to or like. And you know, in today's environment, it's all about the single. It would seem, but he was definitely all about the full album. Um, but I think the biggest lesson is the fact that he so believed in that group. It was and we just reading a little bit that we have read about him. It was almost like he was another member. It's just that he didn't sing or perform. He took care of all the business. But that's just how loyal and how much he believed in them.
Yep, that's exactly right, Dana. And I appreciate you pointing out that his impact that he still has had with the split with promoters, because that 40-50 or 50-50 split, that's really impactful now because promoters still make about 10%. So
Right.
the idea here is for Peter Grant, sometimes he did some things that were ethically questionable, let's say, and you can see here that he does have that. I think he's about 6'6" tall, and he was a pretty gigantic guy. They said about over 250 pounds. So if you got that guy coming at you and he wants 90%, you're probably going to give him 90%. And he did not, he wanted people to come to the show and buy the whole record, and that's how they made their money, period. And so there's a story of some teenagers, some kids at the show who were going to try and bootleg the show, and they had either they were taking photographs or some video, I can't remember which, but he threw water on them so that their footage would be ruined. And so that's kind of like the way he operated. And he wanted some money from a promoter, and the promoter was giving him a hard time, so he held the promoter upside down by his ankles out of a hotel room balcony. So that's the way they got things done back in the 70s. But yeah, it's pretty interesting about how he really moved that pay scale forward for performers. And, traveling with the band makes a huge difference there as well in solving those problems, however you solve the problems. Okay, so let's see. Let me go back here. I know that the next Herbert Breslin. So who has Herbert Breslin? Let's hear.
I know I do, and so does Kevin.
Okay.
I do is Kyle. Sorry.
Hi, Kyle.
Do you want to start, Kevin, or should I?
I'll go ahead and start because I don't have much, but I got some stuff.
Okay, sounds good.
What I had got from Wikipedia and New York Times was that Herbert Breslin started as a publicist, and he represented like Luciano Pavarotti and Placido Domingo, and then like later on down the line, he decided to become an artist manager, and he had to choose between the two, and he wound up choosing Pavarotti. And in the New York Times, it was said that he was a hard man, and he knew how to get the gold out of an entertainer, and they said he drove hard bargains, he annoyed opera organizers and journalists to get where he needed to get his artists, and he worked greatly to build the career of Pavarotti, which, what is, I forgot what they said he is, he a tenor?
Yeah, he's actually a tenor. He's also isn't he a conductor as well?
Yes.
Yeah, and what else did I? Okay, I think that was about it. Is what I got so far.
Just to kind of build off of what Kevin was saying, looks like he actually had a 36-year professional relationship with Pavarotti, which is really a statement all in itself. Looks like he was only really collecting about 10% of what he was making. So, I mean, that's a very, very, I would say it's, at its best, it's really keeping good relationship with the artist themselves and establishing longevity with your relationship. It's clear that he wasn't trying to screw this guy over. Another aspect, just to add to what Kevin was saying, was he really, really seemed to know all different aspects with which to capitalize his talents. I mean, he really, really had a good knack for public relations. Obviously, before that, his career states this as well. And I mean, his connections with the media and being able to link them with opera, which I'm sure isn't always easy to do, was, I mean, legendary from what I understand. So.
Yeah, and here's a book in case you're interested. Here's a picture of the two of them, and then there's a whole book, The Uncensored Tale of Luciano Pavarotti's Rise to Fame, by his manager, friend, and sometime adversary. So we did say, though, that the manager cannot be a yes man, right?
Nope.
There you have it.
You want your artist to last.
Yeah, and 36 years, pretty good, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And 36 years, I agree, is very impressive. And he really did do a good job of exploiting what Pavarotti had to offer, for sure, besides the talent and the PR aspect. So, great job. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to Joe Simpson. Who had Joe Simpson? Okay, Lewis, go ahead. You having some trouble, Lewis, with your mic? Can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, there you go. Joe Simpson, he was born in February 18, 1958, Texas, youth minister of Baptist Church in Texas. Pretty much, he's the father of Jessica Simpson and Ashley. Pretty much what he did was their careers, besides the musical plane, I would say, including reality shows for Jessica and the movie version of The Dukes of Hazzard. A failure at the very beginning of Jessica's career in the country music. So in both cases, what he did was expand their as a music, but in the end, their careers sort of like became damaged by different issues or decisions he made regarding things like pre-recorded tracks and when the artist is singing over pre-recorded song. It relates to the leadership lessons we learned in the first month of the entertainment business masters. Pretty much the green laws of reputation and guard it with your life. And in victories, learn when to stop. I would say both were the mistakes of Joey Simpson. And besides of that, I just found out that apparently he's gay, but it's not related with the class, of course. So pretty much is it.
Okay. I actually did not know that until I just Googled his image and saw that come up as a search term. So, but yeah, I guess it's not really related. But yeah, the lip singing issue, and then Jessica had a terrible performance, and these are the kinds of things that can really mess it up. And having you can't be too prepared. So having his artists and his daughters in this situation not be prepared really drastically affected them. So
it's sort of overexposing, right?
That's right. That's right. And the reality shows, definitely contributed to that too. So next up we have Jon Landau. So who we got here with Jon Landau? Somebody have Jon Landau? That might have been one that was skipped. So we can come back to that if no one's claiming that. But pretty much it's the idea behind Jon Landau. The lesson learned that I will tell you is he's Bruce Springsteen's manager. So here we have there's a picture of him with Bruce Springsteen, and he kind of showed him how to connect to the working class, which was his act, what was behind his art, but still have that commercial business. So making those financial gains without, selling out or giving up your values. And one of the things that comes to mind when I was reading more about Jon Landau at first was those commercials with Lay's potato chips, and Eva Longoria is the spokesperson for that. And it just doesn't seem very authentic because she, probably weighs like 88 pounds and she's a spokesperson for Lay's potato chips. So Bruce Springsteen, on the other hand, keeps everything like very authentic and doesn't sell out. And Jon Landau kind of helped him along with that idea of commercializing his success. Okay, Bob Doyle. Somebody have Bob Doyle? Hello? No one? Maybe somebody had to leave that had Bob Doyle. Bob Doyle is the artist manager for Garth Brooks. So essentially here, Bob Doyle is very well connected to the artist management industry, and he knew all of the right people to introduce Garth Brooks to. And unfortunately for Garth Brooks at that time in the early 90s, he could not get a client, or he could not get an artist manager. So Bob Doyle took him on himself as a client, even though he was high up in the music industry. No label was interested in him, and as luck would have it, when Garth Brooks appeared in just a random cafe, he happened to have the schedule changed, and he got a different slot, and he was in front of a whole bunch of record label chiefs, and Capitol signed him that night. So the lesson learned here, if Bob Doyle were here, might say, stay in contact with your gatekeepers and be prepared for when you do have that bit of luck come forward. And something interesting about Garth Brooks is he's very well connected with his fans, and he stood one time for 23 hours signing autographs. So let's see if we can find the right Bob Doyle, because I feel like that's not him. There we go. Bob Doyle and Garth Brooks. Okay, Andrew Long Oldham.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Robin Lena. Is that how you say it?
Yes, correct.
Hi there.
Okay. He recruited and signed his first act at the age of 19, which were the Rolling Stones. He was their manager and producer from 1963 to 1967, is what I found off Wikipedia. And it was said that he was responsible for their quote unquote bad boy image. He was also known for his flamboyant style. And one of the lessons noted that I found in the textbook, that you should exploit the talents of your artists. So what I got from that is you should exploit every possible talent, and some of their strong points or not so strong points you should also develop and turn those into assets. Like if they're not good writers, maybe work on that with them, is what I kind of got from the textbook. So that could be one of the lessons that he would leave behind.
Yes, Robin Lana, that's exactly right. Is figure out a way to develop your artist. And in this case, it was songwriting, but it could be dance lessons. It could be having a certain kind of stage presence. It could be the image that we talked about earlier with Celine Dion. Figuring out just however you can cultivate that, and that would be one of your jobs for sure as an artist manager. And one of the things he did was capitalize on what was happening in kind of the music political environment landscape. He was close with Brian Epstein, the manager of the Beatles at that time. And so he went to the label that signed the Beatles, or I'm sorry, the label that turned down the Beatles. So if you're the guy that turned down the Beatles and you work and somebody comes to you that works with the Beatles and says, hey, I have this band, just psychologically, you're not going to say, I'm turning down this band because you've just passed on the Beatles. So that was a pretty smart move on his part to go to that particular person. Okay, next up we have Johnny Wright. Thank you, Robin-Lena. Very good summary there. Who had Johnny Wright?
I had Johnny Wright. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, Shannon, yep.
Okay. Johnny Wright, he was very successful in managing some of the most commercially successful pop artists in history. He was very popular with the boy bands, like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, New Kids on the Block, of course, Britney Spears, later on Justin Timberlake, and Boyz II Men. He partnered with P. Diddy to do Making the Band, and I guess out of it they were supposed to produce a all-girl group called Danity Kane, but they weren't as successful. His background, he was a DJ, radio DJ, and through his profession, he really observed and learned a lot about managing artists, and that helped him later on how to solve problems um, and working with people. He said being on the road is the best experience of the profession for tour managers and aspiring artists on how to manage issues. And um, he was just really good with tour management and problem solving and knowing how to interact with people, because the problems were often related with the responsibilities of individual people. And so knowing how to deal with the individual based on the responsibilities, he was able to motivate everyone around the artist and making sure that their performance was a success.
That's right, Shannon, because what you said ties in to the whole job of an artist manager is working with the individual. And Johnny Wright did a very good job as an artist manager by traveling with the bands. That's not a requirement of an artist manager, but if the artist manager is able to travel with all these different acts all over the place, then even if you're not an expert in, venue management or lighting or video or sound production, whatever the issues are that come up, just like Shannon mentioned, these are problems that come up with individuals. And as an artist manager, it's really your job is human resources and, finessing and solving people problems, interpersonal issues, right? So he was smart to do that, and that was a key to his success. So thank you very much, Shannon. And Lou Pearlman, the infamous Lou Pearlman. Speaking of living in Orlando, or having lived in Orlando. Who has Lou Pearlman? What happened to all these people who had all these artist managers? This looks like it might be a funny picture. Okay, Lou Pearlman. All right. Ponzi schemer, bad boy manager, a boy band manager. Okay, so these are all photos of Lou Pearlman, and unfortunately, that's what I think of. I mean, here in Orlando, he's.
Oh no.
Okay, is Lou Pearlman sounding familiar? Somebody? Anyone? All right. Well, what happened with Lou Pearlman is he managed the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and never heard of him. Okay, well now's your chance, Calvin. And what happened is he listed himself on the contract, the artist manager agreement, as the 6th member of the band. And what's kind of ironic about that is he actually was a boy band performer at one time in his life, but when he was managing the band, you can see he was not one of the members of the band, but he listed himself so that he would get performance fees, so that he would get touring and merchandise income. It was definitely illegal what he did. And he also paid himself a consulting company that he owned 43% of their fees, so that they were paying a consultant, which was owned by him, Transcontinental. He booked flights on his own air charter service that he owned. Let's see, what else did he do? He put all of their savings into a group of accounts owned by, guess who? Lou Pearlman. And pretty much everything he did, they call it a Ponzi scheme because it fed all into the different levels of ownership that he did. So people here were very angry with him because this is kind of like our homegrown bands, right? And you can see how much he was living pretty high there. You can see by this house that he lived in. So that was a huge, big scandal, and you can see that he was convicted, and they did settle up out of court and for an undisclosed sum, still undisclosed. So the issue here is trust, and the issue here is also kind of like a CCR, modern day CCR, continually looking at that contract, because they would have, maybe noticed some of that somewhere, that when they listed the members of the band and Lou Pearlman was listed, that might have raised some eyebrows if somebody was looking closer at some of that stuff. So, okay, so moving on, and we're getting close to the last couple here. Sharon Osbourne. Sharon Osbourne.
I think you gave that. This is Amy. I think you gave that one to me.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if you meant to, but I did it anyway.
Oh, great. Thanks.
She, of course, is the manager for Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne of Black Sabbath fame. She is the daughter of Don Arden, who was the manager of Black Sabbath. When Ozzy left the group, she wanted to eventually sign him. Dad wouldn't let her, so she started her own management company and bought the contract out. And she's responsible for negotiating his 1981 solo contract with Epic, which blew up his career. 4 million sold in that. The book had some little bullet points. It didn't say much about her, but it had some bullet points that I found to be, very accurate. I personally love Sharon Osbourne. I think she's amazing just as a personality and someone who just, anything that comes out of her mouth, even if it's crude, I just think she's great.
She's
so
funny.
I'm a little biased, but manage PR, make sure that the public relations of your artist are what they need to be, because after all, that's what they live on. Marry your job. We've talked about a lot of these managers committing to their job, which I think is very important. You're not, when you go into this business, you're not going to have a 9-to-5 deal. Customer satisfaction, obviously that's the fans. One of the examples of that I read was, just her in 1996 is when Ozfest started, which was a festival. She approached Lollapalooza, I guess, to have Ozzy join Lollapalooza, and they turned her down because they said he wasn't relevant, not cool enough, drugged up, which was probably partly true because we've all seen the reality show. However, so that's what was the catalyst for her to start Ozfest. And one of the things they did in 2007 was ticket prices had gone to like $150 a pop. And so they announced that tickets would be free so more people could come. By then they were grossing 20 million so per festival. So I think that's a great example of her customer satisfaction. I mean, you're really playing your fans on that. Free, come on, follow your gut, and I preach that to anybody I work with. If you really don't know, I mean, you know the answer. Even if you don't want to know the answer, you know the answer. You gotta understand that. Play to win. We've talked about that in other classes about leadership, I think it might have been, but this is something I also always teach my artists is make bold moves. Don't be afraid to throw it all in. That's, you might win or you might lose, but if you win, it'll be phenomenal. Learn to cope. I think, in the entertainment business, having thick skin is a pretty high requirement. I don't think there's a whole lot of people that'll survive if they can't cope with the roller coaster ride that will be. And know when to move on. Know when to fold it, know when to cut ties and bail. And that's evidenced in, she hasn't just managed Ozzy, she's managed acts like Smashing Pumpkins, Lita Ford. Rock's not my typical default setting on my iPod, but I do love me some Smashing Pumpkins, so I found that to be interesting. I didn't know that. I knew the Lita Ford one. She's actually turned down Guns N' Roses and the likes of Courtney Love as far as trying to get, they were trying to get some advice from her and some management help from her, and she turned them down. So Sharon's really created her own career. Obviously, she's created as a personality on television. Her website is amazing considering she's a manager. She's really become a force to be reckoned with all our own. And I like that her website has Facebook and Twitter feeds. Her internet presence, you know, we're talking about that on our discussion board this week. Internet presence. Her internet presence is huge. I mean, her website is great. Her Twitter feeds and her Facebook feeds are all right there. There's photos. There's a whole lot of different tabs you can check. So yeah, Sharon's awesome. She's one of my favorite personalities out there. So yeah, that's a lot of the stuff I got in that short time.
Okay, well, great. Thank you so much for doing two of those. And I liked this headline. I mean, it was very disturbing, but this is an article that you guys can read a little bit later if you like. The Guardian. I can drop this link into the discussion board. But Eminem sings about killing his wife. My husband actually tried to do it. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, I remember that. Actually, I remember that.
Yeah. So, okay.
She stuck with him though.
Imagine, it'd be tough. So I guess that know when to move on does not apply to that situation. That lesson that she shared about knowing when to move on does not apply. If your husband tries to kill you, you don't have to move on. You can just stick it out. Okay, so Jeanette. Yeah, she's something. Okay, so we have Janetta Patton.
That's me. Can you hear me?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Hey, Rachel.
Okay. Well, as you can see, she's responsible for Usher, and she's actually the mother of Usher, and she's been managing him since the beginning of his career. She realized that at a young age, about 8 or between 8 and 12, that he had a good voice, so she decided to manage him. And she basically followed him throughout his whole career and managed him all the way up into his adulthood. There was a portion in his teenage years where his voice was changing, and there were people that were going to drop him from the recording contract. He almost lost his recording contract, but she pretty much helped to change his image and to change his brand as far as being a sex symbol, I guess you can say, and basically brought more fans in, and from there, you know, changed his whole outlook as far as the success of his music career. There was a portion about in 2007, whereas they parted ways, but she became his manager again in 2008. And basically, the lesson learned in this situation is, you know, you basically change with the artist, and there's times when you have to change the original brand of the artist, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You have to make sure that you know exactly what the audience wants, know exactly what the label wants, know exactly what the industry trend, what they want, and be able to adjust it accordingly. That's pretty much it. She also manages. He's pretty much the only one that was managing at the time, but she manages another son also that's doing pretty well, not too bad himself.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing that, Rachel. And you are right about managing the image, and that is for sure a takeaway lesson about, you know, making sure that that image is managed as the artist matures, and nothing I think fans responded kind of unfavorably when he went from like this, you know, sexy sex image ladies man kind of guy. And then all of a sudden he got married and had 2 kids, and there was this conflict between the mother-in-law and the daughter and all that. So, you know, that kind of was like a whole thing that affected his performance and his record sales and so forth. Okay, and I think that we just have this very last one here. I'm going to spell it wrong.
I think somebody else had her also.
Oh, did somebody else have Janetta Patton? Okay, go ahead. Who else had Janetta Patton?
Maybe not. I don't know.
It was me.
Oh,
but
no.
Rachel summed it up pretty well.
Okay.
I don't really have anything to add, and she had trouble staying out of the gossip with Usher's, I guess it's his ex-wife now, so she doesn't really handle her stuff well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that all that stuff on the side it definitely takes away from the talent for sure. Okay, thanks guys. And okay. Dr. Luke. Who had Dr. Luke Gottwald? Nobody had Dr. Luke? Okay, the lesson here basically is that Dr. Luke signed Kesha, and he kind of put her on hold. And in the interim, he said when he had time, he would get to her contract. And in the interim, she went with another group called DAS Management, DAS. I don't know if you say it DAS or DAS, but anyway, she was signed and she made a lot of money during that time. I think it was the highest, the best weekly sales on the digital song chart ever, and it was in 2006. That TikTok song. And because he had something in writing from her prior, even though DAS was managing her, he reaped the benefits of that. So that was quite a lot of money for him, and now he's in a lawsuit. So the fact of getting it in writing would be the lesson here from Dr. Luke. So, but those are the all-star artist managers, a selection that we wanted you. Was it in a sunset clause for him? No, I mean, it was a brand new artist. So it was just kind of a fluke thing that highly unusual for a new artist to come into a new career and pay those kind of dividends. So that's pretty much what happened with that. So I'm not sure yet. I don't know if the agreement has been settled. So, but yeah, it's highly unusual. So those are the. I can't tell that they're completely settled, but there are a lot of details about it in the textbook. But I know that they ended up going to court for sure. But these are the main lessons learned. So how about everybody type the one lesson that you will take away for the evening? I know you'll remember all of them, but the one lesson that you'll take away the most for the evening. Get it in writing. Don't lose your copy. Okay. Get experience any way you can. Interest of the artist first. Believe in the work artist. Understand how to manipulate a brand if necessary. Exploit every talent. Wow, you guys were listening. So impressive.
Good summaries, everybody.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, I think this is all of them. These are all the lessons.
Yeah, awesome.
Class is.
Well, hey, great job taking us through this, Jill. One thing I wanted to mention, we do have a blended classroom here where we have some folks that are from online. So for the folks that are on for online, we do have an additional recorded session for you that is available that you should watch in addition to this today, because it will take you through the main content for this week that corresponds with your textbook reading to help you prepare for your big assignment that's due, the live event project, and we reviewed that in detail last week. If you're on campus, then you have your reflection assignment that's been posted. Jill's going to export this archive and we'll get that posted later on. So really good discussion. I'm glad I think I really look at these perspectives of different lessons learned from different artist managers helps us learn so much about that kind of walk a mile in someone's shoes to try to understand the different challenges and learnings that you can get from really looking at others who've worked in this industry.
Has this changed anybody's mind one way or the other? Like you were interested in artist management, now you're not, or you weren't so sure, but now you think you maybe do want to go into artist management? You're all still sold on being artist managers when you grow up? You wanted
Has
even
it
more?
changed?
Okay.
And I'll post an article onto the community board online, and then I share it in class in a couple days. But it's about three different disputes that might change your mind about wanting to be an artist manager, because they're different disputes on ways that artists have, even though they might have a contract in place, ways they've kind of tried to get out of those contracts once they start making money. And so it's a good kind of cautionary tale too. If you're like, I'm sold, I want to work in this industry, some ways that some artists, including America's sweetheart Taylor Swift, have kind of screwed over her manager. So
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, so you can't say you haven't been warned. Okay, well, thanks everybody for being here, and we really appreciate
Yay.
And you know, we appreciate hearing from you rather than us telling you. We'd rather have you guys participate. So great
And
work.
Jill and I both did this, even though Cullen made us sick. Thanks, Cullen. All right, guys, take it easy.
We'll talk soon. Okay, bye.
Bye.